Steven Cruz has turned into a legit piece for the back end of the Royals bullpen. So what should they do with him? I'll give you my thoughts next on Locked On Royals.
You are Locked On Royals, your daily Kansas City Royals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is another edition of Locked On Royals in the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter at JohnnyJ_15. That's at JOHNYJ_15. You also can catch us on wherever you listen to your podcast. That can be Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Google Podcast, Odyssey, and YouTube. Just be sure to hit the follow button and subscribe. For you first-time listeners wondering how we do this channel, how we produce episodes, I will be here Monday through Friday giving you 30-minute episodes as well as 60-second YouTube shorts after the game. And we also have the Royals Postcast, which is hosted by Chance Lebo, and he comes to you live for 15 minutes after each and every Royals game. So be sure to give him a follow as early as today so you can catch what he has to say after Game 3 between the Royals and the Mariners. Before we get started, I want to tell you that today's show is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money and use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off on your first year. The Royals were finally able to get back in the win column last night, and in large part, it was due to a great effort from the back end of the bullpen. John Schreiber and Angel Serpa had their mishaps. Schreiber was able to get out of a jam in the fifth to relieve Michael Lorenzen. And then you had Angel Serpa help out Schreiber in the sixth inning. And then you had Lucas Erceg help out Angel Serpa in that same inning. But the back end of the bullpen, speaking of Lucas Erceg, Steven Cruz, and Carlos Estevez, were big reasons as to why the Royals were able to hang on and win Game 2. I will say that even though the Royals are 6 games under 500, and we'll be talking about what's ahead for them in the month of July and looking ahead into tonight's game with Noah Cameron and Logan Gilbert squaring off, last night was very important in terms of how this road trip could look. If they would have lost last night, you would have fallen to the 2 weaker pitchers that you're facing, and now you're asking Noah Cameron, a rookie, to find a way to give you at least one win in the series going up against Logan Gilbert. Now, the Royals, oddly enough, have great numbers against Logan Gilbert, and I'll dive into that in the third segment. But as for last night, it was important that they found a way to win that game, because now tonight becomes very, very important with who's lined up to throw on Thursday. If you find a way to win tonight, now you're sending Seth Lugo to the mound, your hottest pitcher, to find a way to win the final 3 games in Seattle and take some serious momentum going into the weekend. Now, stop me if you've heard this before, which it just shows how bad the AL Central has been outside of Detroit. The Royals winning last night put them a game and a half back of second place. I mean, Cleveland and Minnesota have done nothing with the Royals falling to where they're at. And with a good finish to this weekend, they could find themselves back in second place. That's not really the focus, though. The focus is just trying to stack wins at this point. You got to find a way to get back to 500, and we will discuss that in the second segment. But the most impressive arm last night was by far and away Steven Cruz. And what a season he has managed to put up so far, at least in the first half. And I go all the way back to spring training when I was down there in Surprise, Arizona, and he was one of the guys that I wrote down as my surprise candidate, the one that popped the most to me. And that's naturally going to happen when you have someone that's 6'7", 6'8", and 250, 260 pounds. You are going to stand out when you're throwing on the mound. But his stuff looked so electric in those live BPs. His fastball had tremendous zip to it. And that's just been a constant ever since he got called up when Hunter Harvey went on the IL. And I do have a recollection in saying this probably a month and a half after Harvey had gone on the IL. And I said that you don't even need to worry about Hunter Harvey anymore. It sounds harsh, and I feel bad that Harvey's not been able to stay healthy in his time in Kansas City. But Steven Cruz is far better than Hunter Harvey ever could have been for the Royals. He has been a tremendous upgrade over what Harvey was. And Harvey was pitching great before he went on the injured list. But in his career, he never possessed stuff that Steven Cruz has. And when I talked to Matt Quatrero about a month ago, it was after one of his first outings of being in the 8th inning and having a high leverage moment. He said he's earned that. His stuff alone has earned him that spot to go in there against the meat of the order in a 1-3 run game and find a way to keep things locked down. And last night, because Lucas Erceg had to go and bail out on xERA, you didn't want to burn Lucas Erceg for the rest of this series by throwing him back out there for the 8th. So they got to turn to Steven Cruz and facing Rodriguez. And then he also faced Cal Raleigh. He had to face Jorge Polanco, I believe, as well. I mean, he went through the teeth of the order. And that was 3-4-5. And that could have been a moment in the game that spiraled out of control. And now a 5-1 lead that you had completely disintegrates. But Steven Cruz looked as good as he ever has in a Royals uniform. And funny enough, speaking of looking as good as he's ever had in a Royals uniform, he had the single best pitch among all pitchers last night. And I love following this account on Twitter. It's Pitch Profiler. And they go over Stuff Plus, which is just measuring the physical traits of a pitch. So you got fastball, sliders, changeups. And, you see the elite end for relievers. It's 150, 160, 170. So Stuff Plus is always a fun thing to follow because it really tells you how devastating a pitch really was. And I've seen pitches as high as 170, 180. I mean, you're talking about a disgusting pitch, borderline unhittable. And Steven Cruz's fastball last night was given a rating of 204. 101. 101.3 to be exact on a pitch he struck out Cal Raleigh with. But it was the movement, it was the spin, it was the velocity. It got graded out at 204. Like I said, elite, upper end elite is 170, 180. He was at 204. Pure closer stuff. Fortunately for the Royals, they've got a closer with 23 saves right now and only one save that was blown in the 9th inning. Estevez has been phenomenal. Lucas Erceg, though he's working back from being on the injured list, they've got a 3-headed dragon out there. It's not HDH. It's not close to HDH, but they really have an elite 7th, 8th, and 9th inning trio right now. And the big question becomes, because I brought him up yesterday in trade discussions, the relievers can be so volatile. And this could be how Steven Cruz looks in the first half, and then he's, unplayable in the second half. It can happen. Carlos Hernandez, I recall back in 2023, was so dominant. He was used as an opener. He was used as a back-end guy. He was throwing 100, 101, 102, and he was never the same after Scott Barlow was traded. And the Royals likely regret not dealing him in that season. So for Steven Cruz, it probably depends on where you're at. If the Royals find a way to get really hot before the deadline, then you keep him. That's somebody that you can maybe count on being a setup guy or your closer next year if you were to move Carlos Estevez for whatever reason. I don't see it happening. But to have a legitimate 7th, 8th, and 9th inning guy, it makes games like last night that much easier to close. I had wondered when Harvey went down who was going to be the one to step up. Would it be Daniel Lynch? Would it be John Schreiber? Would it be Angel Serpa? The answer is Steven Cruz. And with the way that Cruz is pitching, he's going to earn more opportunities like that. He is a legitimate big-time arm for the back end of the bullpen. And the fact that J.J. Piccolo and company got him and Evan Sisk for Michael A. Taylor, those are the type of moves that keep you competitive for a number of years. You would like to see it happen with a position player, but we know the Royals can develop pitchers. We know that Brian Sweeney, Zach Bove, and Mitch Stetter work with these guys and get the best out of them. And Steven Cruz might be one of the bigger success stories of 2025. We'll see if it matters in the long run, because if he pitches well going in the deadline and the Royals don't catch fire, he might be one of those pieces you try to move. So it really does matter where this team is at and what the future of Steven Cruz looks like. because that's one of the pieces you might look to trade if you're going to be out of it. And relievers, as we know, they can be expensive, especially ones with years of control. I mean, what's the difference from what Steven Cruz is doing right now than what Lucas Erceg was doing last year? You could make a case that Steven Cruz is putting up better numbers, and the Athletics got 3 prospects for him. Steven Cruz has multiple years of control. There's value in that. But also for a team, if you get hot and you move back into being a contender in a mediocre American League wildcard race, he's somebody you absolutely want to hang on to because that's a big-time reliever. They have suddenly developed out of nowhere. So Steven Cruz, I tip my cap. I hope to see him in many more high-leverage spots the rest of the way. And hopefully, in a second half that matters to the Royals and their fan base. Next thing we're going to be diving into is, what does the month of July look like? Is there any let-up? Are there easier teams on the schedule? I'll tell you what I make of the schedule next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson. Catch us on wherever you listen to your podcast. Want to tell you about Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades. That's Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online, and their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. The month of July began last night, and the Royals are now 1-0 this month. They did not have a good month of June, as we all witnessed. One of the more pathetic months of June that we have seen in a decade plus, I would say. They won 1 game at Kauffman Stadium, and they just limped to the finish line, winning only once in the final week of June. But then they open up July with a win last night, 6-3. And as we know in sports, a win is always going to make you start thinking more optimistically. And last night, based off my Twitter feed, you got people starting to buy into, oh, could they get hot? Right? You see they're a game and a half out of second place. We know the All-Star break is coming up. In my opinion, a 1 win is not going to do it. And that's not really a shocking statement to anybody out there. You got to find a way in these final, let's see here, 2, 5, 8, 11 games. You probably need to find a way to go 9-2. If you're really going to catch everybody by storm. Maybe I can bump it down a little bit and say 7-4. You go 7-4, that would put you at 47-50 going into the All-Star break. And maybe you're feeling a little bit better. That cuts your, record, or I guess your games near 500 in half, because you're 6 games under. That would put you 3 games under. I was trying to find the best way to say that, and it came out so poorly. But in these last 11 games, you go 9-2. That puts you at 49-48. So that would put you 1 game ahead of over 500. And with the teams you have, Seattle is still a team you're chasing. They are better than you. Arizona, in my opinion, you are catching at a good time. Not for how they're playing, just for what the rotation looks like and who's hurt in that lineup. A lot of stars in that lineup are banged up, and that plays in favor of Kansas City. We've said this before on the podcast that those teams that are top 10 in OPS, the Royals just don't fare well against them. It doesn't matter what their pitching staff looks like. Like the Dodgers were number 1 in baseball in OPS. They had the 24th best ERA as a team in all of baseball. They lost that series. The Athletics, bottom pitching staff, they were top 10 in OPS. The Royals got swept in that series. But I look to the Giants series, the Rangers series. The Royals play really well against teams that are just not playing well offensively, and that shouldn't be too much of a surprise. Funny enough, It doesn't matter what the pitching staffs look like. The Rangers had the number 2 pitching staff in all of baseball, and the Royals swept them. So to me, it really comes down to that offense and how they play. So I look at Seattle. They're middle of the pack. You find a way to split this series, and then you go into Arizona, and you maybe take 2 of 3. That gives you a winning road trip. That would put you at 4-3. And then you come back for Pittsburgh and the Mets. Maybe you can find a way to sweep Pittsburgh because they're one of the worst offensive teams as well, though they're playing much better under Don Kelly since he took over when they were 12-26 or 12-28. And then you got the Mets, who are playing some of the worst baseball of anybody, and that includes the Royals. They got smacked around by Pittsburgh, were outscored like 30-6 or something like that. So you get the Mets to close out the first half. I'm not going to look at that Mets series and say, well, that's an easy opponent because they have Francisco Lindor. They've got Pete Alonso. They've got Juan Soto. That's an elite lineup, and they can get going at any point, and Juan Soto has been one of the hottest hitters in baseball. Then you've got the All-Star break. You have the Marlins right out of the All-Star break in Miami, and it's a Marlins team going for their 9th consecutive win tonight against the Minnesota Twins. So you're rooting for Miami, who's now leapfrogged the Atlanta Braves in the National League East. You're hoping they can continue to knock off the Twins. But come the second half, the first series out of the break, I hope they're playing bad baseball. I hope the time off really cools them down so the Royals can find a way to win another series. Then you go to Wrigley Field and take on one of the better teams in the National League, Pete Crow Armstrong, the Chicago Cubs, a team that desperately needs pitching, but a really good offense. I don't like the chances for the Royals in that series. Then you got Cleveland and Atlanta. Atlanta has been a team that is severely underachieved. They have not been hitting well, and Cleveland has been struggling just as much as the Royals of late, speaking offensively. That's what you have in the month of July. And on July 31st, the Royals will have an off day. So trade deadline day, the Royals are not playing. They will then be heading north of the border to take on Toronto, and it'll be a long road trip in August. They won't return home to Kauffman Stadium until August 11th against the Nationals. We're not talking about the month of August. We'll do that at the end of July. So what I'm looking at for this month is a really good Seattle team, and a Seattle team I believe you'll be fortunate just to split with, an Arizona team that's banged up, a hot Pirates team, though not that great offensively, a Mets team that's incredibly talented, but struggling of late. Then you've got a red-hot Miami team, but a Marlins team that might come back down to earth. Really good Cubs team on the road, a struggling Cleveland team, though we can maybe hold off on that because by the end of July, who knows what the Guardians are playing like. And then you have Atlanta, who still has their star pieces over there. There are winnable games, but I say that every single month. There are winnable games, there are winnable series, and the Royals got to find a way to capitalize. But in my opinion, for this month, if you want to capture everybody's attention again, if you want to start telling everybody we're back in it and we're going to be buyers, and even though yesterday I did a episode in the segment on who the Royals could target if they choose to trade Seth Lugo, if they go the opposite direction, in my opinion, they have to go at worst 7-4 over these final 11 games. If you are 3 games under 500 at the All-Star break, I can see a good second half putting you right back in the hunt. Because that final wild card spot, it's just not as firm as maybe it even was last year. You know, the Rays and Toronto, they're playing really good baseball. Then you've got the Mariners bunched up there. You got Texas, you got Boston, you have Minnesota, you have Cleveland, you've got Kansas City. There are a lot of teams that are jammed up there. And it might be jammed up until the end of September, and the Royals might technically be in the hunt. In my opinion, though, July 31st is when you really got to know if you're in it or not. You can look at August and September and say, we've got a chance. You got to know by then if you're really going to be able to make a push or not. If the Royals go 7-4, that would mean taking at least one more in Seattle, taking the series. You would need to win all the series you have remaining here in the first half. Because if you split with Seattle, that would give you one more win, 3 wins if you were to take 2 in Arizona. If you were to take 2 in Pittsburgh or against Pittsburgh, that would give you 5, and then 2 against the Mets, that would give you 7. So you have to, at worst, split against Seattle, and then take 2 of 3 in every single series the rest of the way. And that would put you 3 games under 500. If you were to go 9-2, as I said, to really be optimistic and be over 500 going into the break, you better start sweeping some teams. That would probably mean taking the series in Seattle, sweeping Arizona, sweeping Pittsburgh, which would give you, maybe you just need to sweep one of the teams. You could maybe sweep Pittsburgh and then take 2 of 3 against Arizona, take the series in Seattle, and take 2 of 3 against the Mets. Tall task. And one win last night is not giving me confidence they can do that. But in my opinion, that's where I'm at. If you want to make the rest of the season interesting and you're really going to be in the hunt, you got to play some great baseball the rest of the way. And it's got to begin as early as last night. You won your first game in July. You want to make up for a bad month of June? Well, then find a way to have a damn good month of July. We'll take our final break of the show. When we come back, let's look ahead to tonight's game. Noah Cameron once again taking the ball against an ace of a rotation. We'll talk about it next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson. Check out this podcast 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, and check out our Royals postcast, which is hosted by Chance Lebo and comes to you live after each and every Royals game for about 15 minutes. Want to tell you about Monarch Money. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building your wealth. And I've said it so many times before when referring to Monarch Money. There was a time, even when I was doing this podcast, I was putting my money toward a lot of things I really didn't need to be doing. And now that I've got everything in order, I can be a little bit scatterbrained at times. I know exactly what I'm putting my money toward. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONMLB for half off on your first year. Big game tonight. And speaking of what the Royals need to do to close out the first half, it'll be Noah Cameron once again taking the ball against the ace of a team. And even though Logan Gilbert this year hasn't put up the type of numbers, he's only made 9 starts this year. He's coming off an outing where he gave up 4 to a bad Texas offense. It's still somebody you can't treat for what his numbers are saying. And honestly, his numbers have not been that bad. As I said, a 3.55 ERA. He's struck out 67 and 45 and 2/3, and his whip is below 1. You are facing a good arm tonight. And for the Royals, you're sending a really good rookie out there to the mound, though a rookie that did struggle last time out against the best offense in baseball. But over his last 7, Noah Cameron's given you a 3.46 ERA. He's worked 39 innings, so he's going a little bit over 5 innings per start. And I really don't have any issues over one bad outing over a really good offense. I thought he was very impressive against San Diego in his previous start back on June 21st. He gave up only 2 earned runs and 5 1/3. He also went 5 shutout innings against the Athletics when the Royals really needed that win. But Matt Quatraro pulled him a little bit early, and the Royals bullpen ended up blowing it. So he's been roughed up only twice, I believe, so far this season. And it's been against the Los Angeles Dodgers and the New York Yankees. Those are the 2 offenses that gave him tons of fits. He gave up 6 and 5 2/3 against New York. He gave up 5 in 4 innings against the Dodgers. As a rookie and 2 teams that destroy rookie pitching, I'm all right. I am totally fine in acknowledging that those 2 games are the outliers. And the reason I call them outliers is on the season, Noah Cameron has given up 16 runs, 11 of them to the Dodgers and the Yankees. And I go back to some of the guys he went up against. In that start against Minnesota, his 3rd big league start, he had to go up against Pablo Lopez. And he threw 6 2/3 innings of 1-run ball. He also struck out 8, which I want to say tied his season high. Might have had 9 at one point, but I believe it was just 8. 8 actually is his season high. He has not gotten any higher than 8 or tied it since that outing. He also had to go and face the ace of, I don't really want to call Dylan Cease the ace of the Padres because he's not, has ace type of stuff. But I am blanking on one other game here. Maybe it was Cincinnati. It was Cincinnati. It was Hunter Green that he had to go up against. So Hunter Green was another great arm he had to go up against, and he went 6 1/3 of 1-run ball in that showing. So in these other starts, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 starts, he's given up 5 earned runs. To anybody not named the New York Yankees and the Los Angeles Dodgers, he has given up 5 earned runs. And tonight, he's going up against a very talented Seattle team, a very good offense, one that is vastly improved from a year ago, and they've got their ace on the bump. I have not checked, which I probably should have done. I wanted to get this episode up in a timely manner because I know this week they haven't been before 12:30. It's because I'm having to do some different stuff at work. Next week, we should be back to complete normalcy when being able to get you these episodes, especially now that I've got StreamYard up and working. But if the Mariners are not great against rookie pitchers and maybe rookie left-handers, there are some things you have to watch out for. Cal Raleigh, as great as he's been, he is much better from the right side. So you're going to have to find a way to get Cal Raleigh and his 320-plus batting average out when he's hitting from the right side. You also got to worry about Rodriguez as well, another righty that's going to have the advantage there. You're going to have to worry about Randy Rosarena, somebody that has 3 bombs already in the first 2 games of this series. You're going to have to worry about Donovan Solano as well, who in his career has been able to hit lefties. But Noah Cameron has found ways to limit some of the power against teams that are not named the New York Yankees or the Los Angeles Dodgers. As for the Royals, they got some guys with really good numbers against Logan Gilbert in his career. Now, you do have some guys who have struggled, though I don't anticipate Mark Canha being in the lineup tonight. He's hitting 143 and 7 at-bats. Jonathan India is 0 for 3. Michael Garcia is OPSing at 583 and 8 at-bats. Kyle Isbell's 1 for 7 in his career off Logan Gilbert. But Salvador Perez, OPSing over 1,300 and 14 at-bats. He's got 2 bombs. Bobby Witt Jr. is OPSing at 1,227 and 11 at-bats in his career. Drew Waters, not really sure I understand this one, OPSing over 1,900, not 900, 1,900 and 6 at-bats against Logan Gilbert. And Vinny Pasquantino, OPSing over 1,100 and 5 at-bats against Logan Gilbert. So for whatever reason, some of the guys in the lineup have seen him very, very well. I recall last year when the Royals took 1 in Seattle, Nelson Velasquez went yard off him, a 3-run shot like in the 7th inning. That propelled them to victory. I'm not sure why that game stands out. Maybe it's just because I've got that photographic memory and trying to recall games in Seattle in the past. But they've got some guys, and the guys you would love to see posting good numbers. To me, it never gives me much confidence when you've got bench players that have great numbers, because that's always bound to regress. You're always going to find a way to work around those guys. Or I wouldn't even say work around, find a way to work those numbers down. Like if Mark Canha was hitting 350 against Logan Gilbert and 6 or 7 at-bats, so be it. But to me, the fact that Vinny, Salvi, and Bobby all are OPSing over 1,000 against Logan Gilbert, that gives me some hope that maybe tonight they can see him well again. It doesn't mean everything. The Royals have also had good numbers against guys in the past, and then they get shut out. But it's not Joe Ryan out there who just has great numbers against every Royal in the lineup. But I'm curious how Noah Cameron looks tonight yet again against another ace, if he can keep that trend of pitching well against anybody not named the Yankees or Dodgers, and if the Royals offense can strike early again in the same way they did last night. Because if you find a way to win tonight, you can hand the ball over to Seth Lugo tomorrow with the hopes of going for a series win against a very good and current playoff team in the Seattle Mariners. That'll do it for another edition of Locked On Royals in the Locked On Podcast Network. I've been your host, Jack Johnson. Thank you for making Locked On Royals your first listen today. For your second, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale and find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Tomorrow, we'll recap a little bit more of what happened in tonight's game, and I do promise we'll go over some MLB draft stuff. I meant to do that today, but just had some other things pop up. So we will talk some MLB draft tomorrow, but until tomorrow's episode, you take it easy, Kansas City.